I will show you how I thread my sewing machine. I have a White Quilt Sew Model 1730. Do not judge my lack of terminology. I am not a professional seamstress. I am just someone who has experience working with this sewing machine. So here we go. You're going to want to have some thread and a blank bobbin. For the sake of being able to show you how this works, I'm going to do two different colors. You always want to make sure that you have your needle at the highest position. I have a wheel on the right hand side of my machine, so when I turn it towards me, you'll see this little piece comes up really high, and when it gets to its highest point, you know your needle is at its highest point. I have a lever that's tucked away back behind, and basically I'm going to flip that up as far as it goes. These adapters, for lack of better terms, came with my sewing machine, and I'm actually going to use them to secure the thread on that lever that I just showed you. I have it so that my thread is coming off of the back side. And now I'm going to place my adapters on here. This is just going to secure this in place so that it's kind of loose, but it's not too tight. If it were too tight, I wouldn't be able to pull. If it were too tight, I would not be able to pull the string, but it's just loose enough so that there's a little bit of give. Yeah, so that's perfect right there. I want my thread to go through that little hole up top. So basically, I want it to go like this. This is where I just came from. This little guy is where I'm headed next. It's very important for this little piece to get threaded. I'm coming down, and I'm actually going to change directions once I wrap this thread. So I'm going to wrap it around this teeny tiny piece. It's just going to hook on there. It's essentially catching the thread. And then I'm going to wrap it around this button looking thing so that we're going in the other direction. And we're headed this direction. You want to take your thread and put a little piece on your bobbin. I want to put my bobbin on my bobbin holder, which is right here. I push it down. I'm going to click it over. So now I have my threaded bobbin ready to go. So it should look like this. I want to hang tight to this little thread so that it doesn't get lost, and what's going to happen is when I run my foot pedal, it's going to fill up this bobbin. And hanging on to this little bit of thread to keep it from getting lost, I'm going to gently push my foot pedal. And at this point, I can clip the very top of the bobbin because I don't really need this extra stuff that I was hanging on to. Just going to clip this extra stuff now that my bobbin is pretty much grabbed onto this thread. And I have enough that I don't need to continue going, so I'm just going to stop right here. And then I'll just pull this off. But I'm just gonna undo this. I'm just gonna clip my bobbin thread. And I'm gonna pull this off. Because I don't need that anymore. I wanna have two different colors so you can see the bobbin and the thread. So I'm just gonna put my thread back on this lever, kind of how I had it before. So the thread is going to come from the back side, and I'm going to put on my spool attachments. I figured out that was what they're called, not adapters. I don't know what I was just trying to come up with names for these things. So now I've got my blue thread on there. So to thread my machine, I'm going to take my top thread and I'm going to use this lever that was there before. It actually has, it's like a two-part piece. It's got that piece that was hooked on that I used to thread my bobbin before. And it's also got this little, I don't know, cover piece. So that's going to be my first step to threading the top thread. So I'm going to pull it through here, and it's going to come, you'll see my blue thread is coming out of this tiny piece. I want my thread, so my thread is coming from the back of my machine. I want it to go on the left side of this metal piece. There's like a metal piece in between this little slit. I want my thread to go on the left side of that. And I want it to go down. And under here, I basically just want to pull it around this. That's just a plain plastic piece, but I want it to go under that. Because once I pull it up, it's gonna like get caught up in there. It's gonna get caught up inside. I'm gonna head for this piece. Over this, so it gets caught inside. So it's basically going on the left side of this piece, down under this plastic part. I've got it coming up, and I just got it through this piece heading that way. So next up, we're gonna pull this string down, and I'm gonna show you a close-up of this portion down here. So we're gonna go here, and then we're gonna go back here. We're not gonna go around anything else. It's gonna be hard for me to show you this. I'm just gonna take it straight back. It's going to inevitably fall into, the thread is going to inevitably fall into this little plastic hole, which is fine. But I'm just going to try and get it behind here. So my thread is now behind this little lever. And then the very next thing I do is I'm going to go behind this little lever right here. I'll try to point to it with some scissors. I don't know if that'll help. This little piece right here. It's going to go behind there. So let's take our thread and go directly behind this little piece. And lastly, I want to actually put my thread through my needle. So I'm gonna go from right to left, and I'm gonna take a small tip of my thread, which I'm gonna have to clip the top with scissors because it's not a clean cut. And then, but I'm just gonna put my thread through the needle. So now I have my top thread ready to go. Okay, so on to the bobbin. What I'm going to do is push this plastic piece out. It's got a little part that says push. I'm just going to push it down and just kind of till it clicks, and then I can pull it out. So I want to take my bobbin and keep the thread coming off of this side. And I'm going to simply put it in my bobbin hole, and the thread, okay, so right now it's not hooked onto anything. I simply just put it in the little canister here. There's a little teeny tiny sliver you can see right there. I want to take my thread and kind of get it to where it hooks on that little sliver and just pull. So as I'm pulling, it's actually turning counterclockwise. This little teeny tiny piece that's sticking up, I don't want that to get in my way. So I'm just going to take scissors and clip that off. So now I'm pretty much good to put my cover back on. When I first started doing this, I was like, certainly this can't be the right way to set this up because my thread is basically just been shut on by this cover. And, but that's correct. You want to cover the bobbin. It doesn't matter because what's going to happen is when we actually put these two threads together, this is gonna like get pulled back inside this case. So it's just, you just want it to be just coming out of the case somehow. I usually just do it off to the right, or excuse me, off to the left, so it's not in my way. So I've got this bobbin threaded, and I've got my top thread coming through the needle. So basically what we have to do is we've got to get them to marry one another. Take your hand wheel, the one that we pulled towards ourselves in order to get the needle to its highest point, and you want to turn the hand wheel towards you. So in other words, when I say towards you, I mean you want to turn the wheel so it's going counterclockwise. That's what I mean by towards you. I'm going to turn the wheel towards me, and as I turn the wheel towards me, you'll notice the needle goes down into the bottom of the machine. So I hope you can see where the thread is going. Kind of coming out of the side of the foot like that. Keep turning the wheel so that the needle comes back up. I don't know if you can see the needle tip coming back up. So my thread has gone into the machine and it's wrapped around my bobbin. And that's kind of what it looks like. Take my scissors. Obviously they're not, like, I'm not cutting anything. I'm just using the flat part so that I can, like, have a small thing. And I'm just going to swipe the bottom. Again, this is not cutting anything. This is just so that I can pull my thread out towards the back. And if you'll see, the yellow thread is actually being pulled back into this case. So I'm just going to pull these. So now I've got my threads coming out of the bottom. My bobbin is now coupled with my top thread, and they are coming out of the bottom of my machine, and I'm ready to start my project.